so bright. What is my deal with light? Okay, I'm in one of my moods right now. I'm in a mood, and I'm like, okay, this is what I want to say before we proceed. I'm wearing a tie-dye dress right now that I stole from my mother's house when we were just in Vegas. I stole it from her closet, and I'm wearing this gray sweater that I bought for myself at Goodwill, and it's from H&M, and I'm holding my 50 Shades of Grey George Bernard Shaw of Nikki's that I bought for a couple dollars, BCBG, at her flea market a while back. And I want to say something. I have some work to do. I don't like processes anymore. I don't like them. I respect them, but I don't like it. So I want to kill one right now. Starting on page 57 of this story of my life that I wrote, and I'm not gonna go through all this shit again, okay? Because I did that on Facebook. I even ended it on Facebook, but apparently I have to do it again. I'm like the again, more girl, huh? Okay, let's kill a process. Page 57. This is the final chapter of a story of my life. Pete and Ada come tumbling to the ground, and they make love. And they sure have. Sure have. So 58. 13. It's daylight. Ada watches Pete wake up on the ground, and their bodies are intertwined. They smile upon seeing each other. Ada leans over him to get to his lips. She kisses him. And then Ada says to him, wow, I have to go to her, Pete, to finish it. He nods, and he holds her tight. Oh my God. Daylight. Oh my God. Don't ruin this for the audience, whoever they are. Woman, pull it together. Now, Ada and Pete walk hand in hand into a clearing where they are met by Lamb, Ingrid, and Sam. Beyond the clearing is the cliffside. Beyond that, Lillian's ominous palace. They all look down upon it together. And Ada says, I have some business down there. And Sam says, no doubt she will be waiting. And Ada says, we've got a long walk ahead. And then to little Ingrid, the little girl, she says, you think you can make it? You don't have to. And Ingrid says, I don't want to stay behind. Besides, I have Lamb to help me. He may not freely admit it, but it is the truth. Lamb's like a warrior guy. Super cool to have around. And then Pete says, well, then there's no reason to stay up here any longer. And Ada says, nope. So let's go. The group trudges down through rocks, over bridges, etc. It's a long journey. And then it's early evening. They finally come to the palace gates, and they open upon their arrival. And Sam says, it looks like someone is expecting us. They begin to enter. Pete grabs Ada, stopping her, and he says to her, I can't go inside the box. Fuck. Don't ruin it. I ruined everything. I can't go inside, he says. And Ada says, no, I guess you can't. And Pete says, You'll have the others, and I will be waiting for you out here. Ada jumps into his arms, and in his ear she says, I hope that I'm able to find you again. And Pete says, I promise you will. Ada reluctantly pulls out of the embrace, so reluctantly. Fuck. She and Pete share a quick look, and then she turns and takes her place, leading the others through the gates. Inside, the ceilings are awesomely high, the space cold and open, in hues of red and black. It has a modern Gothic feel to it, and the silence of it is deafening. They stand in the great hall, trying to decide which way to go. The walls and floor are seamless red stone. Ada walks to the left. The group follows. Down a long corridor, they finally reach two heavy black doors. Ada waits for them to open, and they don't. She puts her hands to the handles to pull them open herself. But as soon as she touches them, they jolt open. It's a rush. Ada is uncharacteristically on the offensive. She walks right through the doors. Lamb, Ingrid, and Sam are caught at the threshold. They are unable to cross. Ada feels this, but she leaves it alone and continues forward into the room. The room is almost an auditorium. Out of place, aside from the same red stone wall and floor, it is empty. It's very large. There is a stage at the far end from where Ada has walked in. Not that it's ever been used. Ada says, calling out as she is walking, Lillian. Ada stops in the middle of the room. And Ada says, Lillian. She waits. She closes her eyes. Ada finds Lillian this way, though we still haven't. Eyes still closed, she speaks to her sister. And Ada says, Lillian, come out of there now. I see you. Lillian steps out from the right wing of the stage and stands there, and Lillian says, peekaboo. Ada opens her eyes to see her. And Ada says, how appropriate. You up there, and me down here in the audience. And Lillian says, I thought so. And Ada says, I'm here to end this, Lillian. I don't want to do this anymore. Euclid. What? Sorry, I have in my counting, dive pivot face. Okay. Lillian comes center stage right to the edge. So to the edge. And Lillian says, and Ada just doesn't ever do anything that Ada doesn't want to do. And Ada says, I have a feeling that you are going to force me to make you eat your words. And Lillian says, you have a feeling. That's so sweet. And Ada says, sure it is. As she speaks, Ada moves forward to her sister. 2 steps is all it takes. It's all it takes, though, and she is frozen. Her body turning to porcelain, literally. Lillian appears at the side of her China doll sister, touches her, circles around her. Lillian says, always so pretty. The pretty little sister. Just like a doll, they used to say, skin so fair, eyes so wide. The perfect trophy. Beat. No pain when you're porcelain. And another beat. I like you this way too. But then, Ada's porcelain self begins to crack. And then chip. Pieces fall to the floor and shatter. There's nothing underneath. Lillian steps back, aghast. This is not her doing. The porcelain doll crumbles to the floor. The last piece hits, a brief silence before the giant roof of the auditorium bursts apart and blows away. A great wind is now tearing through the room. Ada appears across the room and is charging straight toward Lillian. Ada speaks as she moves forward. She is hell on wheels. You think there isn't darkness in me, Lillian. You think that's what goodness means. No dark. You are a fool. She reaches Lillian and immediately suspends her in the air. The winds continue to swirl and she yells up to her from below. And Ada says, I know you, Lillian. I know all about you. I passed through you on my way here. That is how I arrived. Beat. And let me tell you something about goodness, Lillian. Listen close. Close. Goodness is not free of rage or desire. Goodness has nothing to do with purity. I am impure, Lillian. The goodness is an existing impurely without molding to it. Lillian is lowered and the winds calm slightly. And Ada says, I am not your enemy and you are not mine. They look at each other for a moment. And then suddenly Lillian disappears and in her place is a massive, terrible beast who is hunting Ada. We hear Lillian's voice. Have fun with my little friend. This is an unfortunate situation. Ada can't let her guard down in order to clear her thoughts or conceive of an escape. The beast, his open mouth, his huge jaws and jagged teeth, it's advancing towards her. So one heavy footstep at a time, she can't do anything. She can't close her eyes to touch her magic. She would die blind. Batteries. She would die blind. She just doesn't feel like doing that. So she stands before him. The village. Idiot. Ada says, in almost a whisper, fine. Beat. Ada says, kill me. And she looks into his eyes and she says, eat me. Beat. And then she looks at him again and she says, eat me. And at that, the beast, only feet away, breaks apart into 1,000 squirrels, a flurry of them, falling to the ground and scurrying away in every direction. Ada can't believe it. Lillian lands behind her. And Lillian says, oh, you put me to shame, Ada. But I still have just a little something more for you. And Ada spins around to her sister without hesitation and throws out her hand, palm out as if to say, stay. And Lillian falls to the floor. And Ada says, no, you don't. Lillian writhes on the ground. Writhes. Whiskey, whiskey. Ada comes closer, stands over her, and Ada says, your fatal flaw is that I know. I know. Both your capabilities and your limitations, but you know neither of mine. And Ada kneels beside her sister. And Ada says, I don't even know mine. Looking at her a moment, and Ada says this. In the end, the only value in spending any time in the warmth of our bodies is to carry as many memories of love as we can hold back to the great big pot. 11. You have taught me a great deal about power, but power is borrowed from the pot. The point is to add more than you have taken. You have lost that battle, and you owe a great debt. And Lillian says, coming undone now, weak. Finish me then. Go on. Win your precious battle. Be victorious. Finish me, you wretch. We see Ada looking at Lillian. It's over. It's over. We see Ada close her eyes a final time for a moment. Sorry. Before she stands, turns her back, and walks away. As we follow her out, we see the pile of clothes her sister wore, a mound on the floor, uninhabited. Ada reaches the doorway at the end of the great room. Lamb, Ingrid, and Sam are all there where she had to leave them. In silence, Ada looks to Lamb and to Ingrid and nods at them. A simple nod. They cross easily now to her side of the threshold, and she puts a warm hand on Lamb's shoulder for an instant. Instant coffee. Smiles at little Ingrid. And then she lets them go, and they move together into the room, into the remains. Yahoo! So much. Sorry. Wow. Okay. Ada leans down to pet Sam. She picks him up. Then they too cross over the threshold back into the world from which they came. As they proceed through the rest of the palace, to its gates, the walls, the ceiling, sealy. And the floors start to break off in delicate specks, like snowflakes. In the soft and gentle snow, the palace disappears. Outside, in the calm of night, Sam says, things come to an end in the most mysterious ways. Ada says, don't they? Sam says, makes you take a minute, pay your respects. And Ada says, yes, Pete. And Sam says, what of Pete? And Ada says, patience, patience. The two of them find a nice place outside, and Ada begins to prep for a fire. And Sam says, will Lamb and Ingrid be returning to us? And Ada says, in just a moment. And Sam says, it might start to get crowded. Ada laughs. It's funny and true. And Ada says the cat. Isolation. Back into the great room where Lamb and Ingrid kneel over Lillian's mess of clothes. This is what my living room looks like right now. The only room of the palace still standing. Let's do this. Ingrid's hand moves to the touch. Oh God. Ingrid's hand moves to touch the clothing. She peels back part of a shirt or a skirt or a scarf, and there inside is a beautiful newborn baby girl. Ingrid takes her into her arms, and Ingrid says, it's okay. It's okay now. We've got you. The expression on Lamb's face is one that has never been seen before. Awe, maybe. Maybe. Ingrid hands Lamb the baby girl, who he lovingly takes into his arms. And Lamb says, she's beautiful. Ingrid smiles and nods. They stand. The three of them start to walk toward the doorway to make their way out to Ada. But as they do, the room begins to break off bit by bit into the same snowflakes we saw before. Snow falls gently all around them, and then they are outside before they ever even reach the threshold of those big black doors. Chartering this most uncommon waters. My tale foretold. And then this happens. This is what happens. So, like, they got, start a fire. They all have to go to sleep. This huge battle has taken place. And the next morning, Pete taps Zeta on her shoulder and is like, hey. And she's like, oh my God, this is a miracle. Like, I didn't even have to find you. You found me. You were here waiting. And then she like starts to stand up and everything, and he's like, oh my God. And she's like, what? And he's like, you got like super fat, like in one night. And she's like this, how rude. And then he's like, do you want to like jump off a cliff with me real quick? She's like, sure. But first, this really weird thing happens where they just like break off into this like weird like carpool karaoke version of like, baby, I love your way every day. I wanna be with you night and day, all the time, every way. And then they just decide to jump off a cliff, and everyone else follows because it's a game, it's a full gang at this point. And then the next thing you know, Megan and PJ wake up in bed together, and Megan's like, that was fucking weird. And PJ's like, that was super fucking weird. And then they sort of sit up a little bit and like, what happened? And Megan looks down at her hands, her left hand. And she's like, I really love the wedding bands that you gave me. And if I don't thank you enough, I'm sorry. Thank you. I love them. And then, they do the nasty. Because, like, for real, like, how does any good story, any good love story end? In the disrespectful, unrelenting, pure, nasty. I'm 17 today. Good night.